The snow is accumulating rapidly.
Temperatures are dropping fast, so stay safe out there. Look behind me.
U.S. President Donald Trump says IAEA inspectors will be allowed in Iran at the appropriate time, rejecting Tehran's claims that it had not agreed to inspections. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio warned that no country is allowed to impose tolls on the Strait of Hormuz as he began a tour of Gulf nations. Stocks fell on Wall Street as a sell-off in semiconductor shares dragged the major indexes to their lowest levels in more than a week. This comes amid mounting concerns over debt-funded spending on artificial intelligence and the prospect of a more hawkish U.S. Federal Reserve. South Korea's Prime Minister Kim Min-seok, who's on a 3-day visit to China, called on Beijing to play a constructive role in helping create conditions for inter-Korean talks and dialogue between North Korea and China, as he held talks with Chinese Premier Li Qiang. Hello and thanks for joining us on Arirang News. The United States says Tehran will allow international nuclear inspectors back into the country. This comes after Iran denied that it had agreed to IAEA inspections. Our An Sung-jin starts us off.
U.S. President Donald Trump has reaffirmed that inspectors from the International Atomic Energy Agency would be allowed to inspect Iran's nuclear facilities at what he called an appropriate time. Speaking to reporters after landing in Pennsylvania on Tuesday local time, Trump said Iran was wrong to claim there were no plans for IAEA inspections, dismissing Tehran's denial that it had agreed to inspections.
They know they're wrong. They told us inside, and we have it down, 100% inspections. And if they were right, I'd cancel the meetings right now.
The issue of IAEA inspections could threaten ongoing working-level negotiations between Washington and Tehran. Trump's claims came after U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance said earlier this week that Iran had agreed to invite IAEA inspectors back and that inspection activities could begin later this week. However, Iran maintains that it has not accepted any new nuclear obligations. The Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson denied reports that Tehran had agreed to inspections of nuclear sites previously targeted by U.S. airstrikes, saying any decision on resuming inspections would depend on the outcome of future ceasefire negotiations. On the same day, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that Iran would not be able to charge tolls in the Strait of Hormuz as part of any final agreement with the U.S.
No country is allowed to charge tolls or fees on an international waterway. That's existing international law.
Rubio is in the United Arab Emirates to meet with officials from the Gulf Cooperation Council and visit countries in the region, including Kuwait and Bahrain. This comes as Iran and Oman released a joint statement which stated that the two countries were reviewing charges for navigation and shipping services in the Strait of Hormuz after the end of the 60-day ceasefire MOU period. These fees could increase costs for Gulf states along the Persian Gulf that depend on the waterway for oil exports. Meanwhile, international oil prices fell on Tuesday to their lowest since February, amid signs that crude shipments through the Strait of Hormuz were recovering. Though damage to port infrastructure could delay a full recovery, markets are closely watching how quickly oil flows can return to normal. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Korean vessels stranded in the Strait of Hormuz since late February have started leaving following the signing of an interim peace deal between the United States and Iran. According to the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries on Wednesday, 4 additional Korean-operated vessels have passed through the Strait of Hormuz after 2 vessels cleared the waterway earlier this week. The vessels are carrying a total of 26 Korean crew members, and one of the 4 is bound for Korea. A total of 6 Korean vessels have now exited the Strait of Hormuz, while 18 others remain inside the waterway. South Korean Prime Minister Kim Min-seok held talks with Chinese Premier Li Chang in Dalian on Tuesday as part of his 3-day visit to China. The two discussed ways to deepen Seoul and Beijing's strategic cooperative partnership across politics, the economy, culture, and people-to-people exchanges. Kim expressed hope that China would play a constructive role in helping create conditions for inter-Korean and North Korea-U.S. dialogue, with both sides agreeing on the importance of working together to maintain regional peace and stability. Kim and Lee also shared the view that high-level exchanges should continue, including on the sidelines of the APEC leaders meeting in Shenzhen this November. This marked the first prime minister-level meeting between the two countries since 2019. On Wednesday, Kim is scheduled to deliver a special address at the Summer Davos Forum in Dalian. North Korea says it has officially commissioned its new 5,000-ton destroyer, the Choe Hyon, in what Pyongyang says is a major step forward for its naval modernization efforts. According to the Korean Central News Agency on Wednesday, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un attended the commissioning ceremony at Nampo Port the day before. Kim praised the vessel's performance, saying it demonstrated advanced and integrated combat capabilities, and claimed the North Korean Navy is being transformed from what was once considered the military's weakest branch into a much more powerful force. He also stressed that the expansion of naval power is a key part of North Korea's broader efforts to strengthen its nuclear deterrent and military readiness. Korea is stepping up engagement with the Global South through a new civic diplomatic platform focused on development cooperation based on Korea's own grassroots experience. Our senior foreign affairs correspondent Oh Soo-young has the details.
A new diplomatic network has launched in Seoul as Korea looks to turn its development model into a stronger bridge with the Global South. Diplomats, academics, and development practitioners gathered at Yonsei University in Seoul for the inaugural meeting of the Semi-Diplomacy Group, or SDG.
Through this platform that we launched today, we can have continuous, permanent engagement through this diplomatic platform, both offline and online.
The initiative builds on Korea's Hemae movement, launched in the 1970s to modernize rural communities and improve living standards outside Korea's fast-growing cities. Based on the spirit of diligence, self-help and cooperation, the movement is now widely cited as part of the grassroots foundation behind the country's rapid economic rise. More than 50 model villages have since been established across 11 nations. Officials and community leaders from more than 100 countries have also visited Korea to study the approach.
And I believe for Tanzania as well, similar movement can be adopted in our own villages, but our own communities as we are coming together. We have a 2050 vision of development. I think cooperation, diligence, and self-help are things that will help us. And
around 40% of the population of Honduras is rural. Semaurundong, it's a component that can drive change in our country. So people-driven and community-centered approach that Semaurundong develops through the capacity building in communities is one of the aspects that can be strengthened.
The initiative comes as hope broadens engagement with emerging economies across Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Pak says the model is not just about rural development, but about human foundations needed for countries to adapt and grow in the changing economy. He says those foundations include education, mindset change, leadership, and civic values.
So Semaurundong has all these ingredients. So when villagers and leaders and also specialists, they learn and adapt Semaul, they can benefit in these 4 areas. And these are what is necessary in the age of AI.
Last month, President Lee Jae-myung visited the Korea Semaurundong Center, marking the first such visit by a progressive president. He called for a significant expansion of overseas programs as part of Korea's development cooperation efforts. The new diplomacy group aims to elevate this development approach onto the agenda of the 2028 G20 summit to be held here in Korea. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Wall Street saw share prices tumble on Tuesday as a sharp sell-off in semiconductor stocks sent the Nasdaq and S&P 500 to their lowest levels in more than a week. Investors grew increasingly concerned about mounting debt-funded AI spending and the prospect of a more hawkish Federal Reserve. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
U.S. stocks closed sharply lower on Tuesday, with the Nasdaq and S&P 500 falling to their lowest levels in more than a week as a sell-off in semiconductor shares rattled investors. By the closing bell, the Dow Jones Industrial Average slipped 0.09%, while the S&P 500 fell 1.44%, and the Nasdaq dropped 2.21%. The Philadelphia Semiconductor Index plunged nearly 8%, while the S&P 500's technology sector dropped 3.7%. Major chip and AI-related stocks led the decline. Nvidia fell more than 4%, Alphabet lost 1%, and chip makers including Intel, Marvell Technology, and AMD dropped between nearly 6 and 9%. Investors are increasingly questioning the sustainability of massive AI-related spending, particularly as major technology companies continue to raise debt to finance data centers and infrastructure projects. SpaceX, which recently entered the public market, has also tapped the bond market to raise capital. Its shares managed to rise 1% after 3 straight days of losses. Meanwhile, memory chip makers Micron Technology and SanDisk, 2 of the market's strongest performers this year, each plunged about 13%. Investors are closely watching Micron's earnings report due Wednesday for clues about the outlook for memory chips and the broader AI sector following this year's powerful rally. South Korean stocks tumbled nearly 10% on Tuesday as foreign investors sold major technology shares. Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix both fell over 12%, reflecting growing concerns over the semiconductor sector and the future pace of AI-driven growth. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now, as we've been reporting since last week, the World Heritage Committee is set to convene in the southern port city of Busan this July to review new nominations for UNESCO's World Heritage List. Ahead of the gathering, our culture correspondent Park Gun-woo sat down with the director of UNESCO's World Heritage Center for an exclusive interview.
At the UNESCO headquarters in Paris, preparations are well underway for one of the organization's biggest annual gatherings. Ahead of the meeting in Busan this July, UNESCO World Heritage Director Lazare Longduo Somo spoke about what lies ahead for the committee.
What kind of key agendas are expected to be discussed in Busan this year, and what kind of possible outcomes, positive outcomes, do you expect to come from that?
It will be an important moment to recognize new side from the rest of the world and also from the Republic of Korea. Important moment to see what kind of solutions or recommendation we can see, including inscribing some sites on the list endangered, to mobilize the international communities to safeguard them.
One issue expected to draw particular attention is Korea's proposal to expand the World Heritage listing of Kaepbar, the country's tidal flats. The original inscription in 2021 covered only part of the ecosystem. Lazare said the extension would strengthen protection efforts while reflecting Korea's commitment to preserving biodiversity.
Not the whole territory of Kaepbar is recognized. The Republic of Korea has prepared this candidature with professionalism, and the site is already known. So I do expect a very good outcome.
Another major topic on the agenda will be support for small island developing states, marking the first time the issue is formally addressed under the convention. He also highlighted Korea's growing role within UNESCO, citing the country's support for conservation projects and heritage capacity building efforts worldwide.
Agreement with the Republic of Korea, which is more than almost $4 million, with a particular focus of supporting Africa and the small island development and transboundary sites. You know, it shows that the implication, the commitment to support the World Heritage with this agreement that we signed today is for the next years.
As climate change increasingly threatens heritage sites globally, he said cooperation with Korea will become more important than ever.
If we don't domesticate some of the policies into national policies everywhere, if we don't train the professionals to really give priority in looking how climate change is affecting each and every site, we might risk seeing many of them disappear.
For UNESCO, the Busan meeting will be more than a gathering to decide new inscriptions. It will also serve as a platform to shape how the world protects its shared heritage for future generations. Park Gon-woo, Arirang News, Paris.
A meaningful event was held at a university to commemorate Parents' Day this year, with students inviting elderly residents from the community to participate. Students expressed their gratitude through volunteer activities associated with their various academic majors. Our Choe Hyon-class reports.
Exciting performances and taekwondo demonstrations unfold on stage. To celebrate Parents' Day at a university in Cheonan, Chungcheongnam-do Province hosted a heartwarming event inviting local senior citizens. The venue was filled with the laughter and smiles of the elderly. Various hands-on activities were in full swing outside the university's main building. Students offered bone density and blood pressure checks, providing personalized tips for health and beauty management.
Watching these young people work, I wondered if we were ever like that when we were young. It was deeply moving to see things happening that we could never have even imagined back in our day.
The event was planned and prepared entirely by university students using the skills they learned in their majors. By dedicating their talents to service, the students spent a worthwhile day reflecting on the love and sacrifices of their own parents. As we enter a super-aged society, universities are stepping up to foster a culture of courtesy and gratitude toward the elderly. Cha Yoon-kyung, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. In France, 40 people have drowned over the past few days while trying to cool off from the punishing heat wave affecting much of Europe. French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu said on Tuesday that most of those who drowned were young people who had gone into rivers or canals to escape the heat. The country logged its hottest day on record on Tuesday, with one southwestern town hitting 44.3 degrees Celsius, and red alerts now cover more than half of France. Paris closed the Eiffel Tower early, and operators shut a nuclear plant after the river meant to cool it grew too warm. Authorities in Italy raised their top warning across 15 cities, and forecasters in Britain expected a possible June high. The United States has supplied doses of an experimental antibody drug for clinical trials against the worsening Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo. This comes as a reversal from its earlier stance of reserving the treatment for Americans only. The drug, made by San Diego-based MAP Biopharmaceutical, will be tested both on its own and alongside a Gilead antiviral widely used during the pandemic. There are no approved vaccines or treatments for the Bundibugyo strain, which has infected more than 1,000 people and killed over 250. Trials are due to begin within weeks through running them in a conflict zone, with frequent attacks on health workers will be difficult. In Nigeria, gunmen killed at least 20 people in a farming community in central Nigeria's Plateau State in the latest burst of violence to hit a region scarred by years of communal bloodshed. Police said Monday the assailants stormed a settlement in the Bakos area on Sunday before police traded fire with them and drove them off. 18 victims were killed during the attack, and 2 others died later in the hospital. The state's police chief has sent extra tactical units to the area. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack. The U.S. Department of Justice announced charges against 455 people on Tuesday over healthcare fraud worth more than $6.5 billion. Reaching across 41 states and naming 90 medical professionals, the DOJ described it as the biggest joint federal and state crackdown in U.S. history. Among those charged was a Los Angeles hospice owner accused of signing up people who were not dying and billing Medicare for patients who were already dead, claiming nearly $28 million. Investigators recovered more than $127 million in cash, high-end cars, and jewelry. The DOJ also struck new data-sharing deals that let prosecutors tap machine learning systems to flag suspicious billing sooner. Choe Hyon, Arirang News.
Weather conditions will differ depending on where you are today. While the west enjoys warm summer sunshine, the south and east remain under gray skies with some rainfall, with 5 to 10 millimeters in the forecast. But Busan and Ulsan will see heavier showers with up to 30 millimeters in the forecast throughout the day. But central regions will be under sunnier skies with strong UV rays this afternoon. It's not going to be as sunny as yesterday, but you will still need sun protection. The capital area looks like being the hottest place at a high of 30 degrees in Seoul, 27 degrees in Gwangju, but easterly winds will keep the east coast much cooler at 23 degrees in Daegu and Busan. Conditions will become more active tomorrow as strong afternoon showers and thunderstorms are expected in many regions.
Now that's all we have for today's noon edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.